Hey everyone, this is Adam. I am a comic book writer, and this series is kind of a behind the scenes look at the creation of my comic book currently called Island of the Lost. Um, for this, I kind of wanted to first talk through brainstorming and a little bit of how I deal with brainstorming and what my approach is and how things usually play out for me as far as just coming up with an idea and then deciding that I want to move forward with it, basically. So I want to talk through exactly what happened with my story, Island of the Lost, which literally I just came up with the idea at this point 2 days ago, I think. So I wanted to try to record this as it was happening, and hopefully the future videos will also do that as well. So just in general, for my brainstorming, I don't use brainstorming like maybe some other people do, and I guess I don't know, but I don't sit down and just think and just write ideas, come up with as many ideas as I can, write them down, and then decide which one I like. That doesn't work for me. It's hard for me to really just sit and stare and think and come up with ideas. It just doesn't. It seems too difficult to do that, at least for me. So that's not a strength that I have. But instead, what I do is on a daily basis, I'm constantly coming up with ideas, small little ideas. Anything that I see in movies or TV shows, anything that I read in books or comics, or anything that I see in my daily life, even just walking around or driving around or whatever, maybe at work, maybe in a family situation, maybe talking to my family and friends and loved ones, just any sort of idea that sounds interesting, or anything that I see in my daily life that is interesting to me. Um, and if I have an idea for a story that goes with it, I'll be like, oh, well, that's an interesting scenario. How would I turn that into a story? And I'll think about it for a little bit. And then after a while, for me, it's hard to get that idea out of my head. So I'll think about it for a couple hours, just keep coming back to it and coming back to it. And then once I flesh out enough in my head, I can start to see if there's potential or not. And if there's not, I kind of just let it sit, and then I'll go on with my day and I'll come up with some more ideas throughout the day, and I'll see if those land or are interesting to me or not. And then maybe the next day I'll be like, oh, what was that one idea I had? Oh yeah, I kind of like that. And let me try that again. And then maybe at that point I expand it. But usually what happens, if it's a good idea, I'll think about it for a couple hours, and then kind of let it sit and ruminate for the rest of the day. And then if at the end of the day I still like it, or if I wake up the next day and I'm still thinking about it, at that point I'll say, okay, let's start taking notes on this. Let's start writing this down. There's some sort of potential here. I don't have all the pieces. I barely have any pieces usually. But if I can just feel like there's some sort of potential, at this point I'll start taking notes on it. And for me, what I do is I just have notes on my phone, like the Notes app on an iPhone, and I'll just make a new note and I'll just write everything down that I had been thinking about for the last day. And I'll just very quickly, very rough, it doesn't matter. I just need to get, basically the only reason I'm doing this is to get the information out of my head onto a note, so I don't have to strain about trying to memorize it or remember it. It's all there. I just need to dump it basically. So I'll do that. I'll throw it on my note, and then once I get all the ideas out that I've already come up with, at that point, then I'm am pretty set to move forward with the idea. So for example, for this comic, Island of the Lost, um, the exact moment when I came up with this was basically trying to remember exactly how it happened, but I was, watching reaction videos on YouTube. Actually, I wasn't really even watching them. I have somebody I follow, and one popped up, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'm gonna watch it. So it was somebody reacting to the anime Hunter x Hunter. I've never seen the anime. I know my brother likes it. I'm pretty sure he likes it. So I was like, okay, I want to check it out. I'm curious what this is all about. And it was a random episode in a random season. I don't even know. I just clicked on it just to see what it's like, if I would be into it or not. And I don't know anything about the show. Don't know anything about that episode at all. For me, I couldn't really tell what was happening, but in my head, it seemed like there was some sort of like contest or competition or game or something where somebody was hunting another person, and then there was other people that were hunting different people. And again, I don't actually know if this is what was happening, but in my head, I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea to have, a game where there's a bunch of people, and each person is hunting one of the other people. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. How do I expand on that? Okay, well, maybe they don't know who they're hunting. They have to determine who the person is that they're supposed to be hunting. And I'm like, oh, how would they do that? Well, they would be talking to them, and then maybe there's like a number, like they have a number. They're like, okay, well, my target is number 7. Okay, so I got to talk to them, and there's something in their backstory, something in their life that indicates 7. And then once I figure that out, then I know that that's my target. So anyway, I had no idea what was actually happening in the episode, but I was just like, oh, this kind of seems like maybe this is what's happening. This is a cool idea. And then from that, I just kept expanding on that, and just kept building on that idea to see if I could come up with the story that I liked. Other things that kind of influenced me on the direction I went, I've recently been watching. I just finished the Netflix series Alice in Wonderland, or sorry, not Wonderland, Alice in Borderland, based off of Alice in Wonderland, very roughly. But Alice in Borderland, and I loved it. I thought it was amazing. So that show has already kind of been ruminating in my head for the last couple of weeks. So okay, well, this idea is kind of similar. How would I make it different from that? Well, yeah, anyway, just try to come up with ways how to make it different, because you don't, you want to take ideas from things you like, but you don't want to just copy it perfectly. So my idea is not Alice in Borderland, but it has similarities, right? And then and that has similarities to Squid Game, which is another show that I like. So they're all kind of in this realm, but I just try to come up with ways to make it differentiate and a little bit different. So that's really where the idea came from. I thought about it for a day and a half, maybe 2 days, and then I said, you know what, I really like this idea. Came up with some characters and some character arcs, an idea of even structure where I was like, oh, what would be cool would be like if every issue is a different character point of view, right? I've seen that sometimes, a few times in comics before, particularly one that I really love, The Nice House on the Lake by James Tynion, kind of does that. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I could introduce that here. It kind of makes sense. Like, I have a bunch of different characters that they're all kind of like, outcasts or criminals or have done tough, bad things in their lives. Again, this is kind of just the route I was going. And the idea is that this game is their last chance to have a second chance at life. Basically, if you win the game, if you have a life sentence, that will be gone and you can start your life fresh. That sort of idea, that's kind of the route I was going. Well, it would be cool if every issue was a different perspective, and then we can really get in the minds of all these different characters that have completely different backstories. I thought that would be cool. So this is another example of just like picking an idea, a bunch of different ideas. So like mixing that with this idea, mixing that with this whole idea that I'm thinking of, just mixing a bunch of things together that I like. I've also, again, been very interested in Japanese culture lately, watching a lot of Japanese reality shows and just media in general, Japanese movies, TV shows, stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, well, where's the setting of this gonna be? Well, Alice in Borderland, they did Tokyo, like, the city, so I'm not gonna do that. But what if I, put it on an island? I like stuff on islands. I love like being in the jungle, like survival, like nature. I'm really into that sort of thing. Okay, well, what if I put it on an island? Well, maybe let's make it a Japanese island. I don't know why. I just have pictures in my head of just like structures, Japanese structures that maybe were left there. Maybe this is an abandoned island. There was a nuclear or some sort of accident that happened there, so nobody can be there, that sort of thing. So I just had this image of the setting in my head, again, just of something I liked, and I just like, well, we can piece that together with this idea. So hopefully this is helping, but this is kind of how I generate my ideas. It really is just like throwing a bunch of stuff together until the puzzle pieces start fitting in nicely, and then once my gut says, you know what, there's something here, then you start moving forward. So basically, yeah, once I write everything out in my note that I had initially in my head, then I'm sitting pretty, and then I can move on to the next thing, which is making an outline. And that's probably something we'll talk about in another video. So hopefully that's helpful to kind of hear. But the biggest thing is just paying attention during your every single day. Every little thing, doesn't matter what it is, that's interesting to you, try to make an idea out of it. See if you can come up with a story. And most of them aren't going to go very far, but the ones that do are the ones that will have some legs, and you'll be able to actually make something out of it. So anyway, that's kind of my thought on brainstorming. Tell me what you guys do, if you have any other approaches, if you do what I do, or if you just sit down in a dark room and write whatever comes to your head, whatever you do. I'm curious what everybody else does, but for me and for this situation, for this comic, that's exactly how it played out literally 3 days ago, that in my head. And at this point, I'm in the outlining stage. That's where I'm at. So anyway, hopefully that is helpful, and I will see you on the next one.